Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I want to talk for a bit about Lauri Markkanen. When I made my first video on him, which was forever ago, he was kind of just a fun story, and he still is, but now he's also a bona fide all-star, not just that, but an all-star starter. As he played this past weekend, he was in the three-point contest. He's having an incredible season, I think way better than people are even giving him credit for, and he's the leader for most improved. He's gone from being perceived by many people as a bust to, like I said, an all-star with tons of room to grow, maybe even eventually becoming an all-NBA player as the new franchise cornerstone for the Utah Jazz. So today I want to talk about what's making his season so special and overall where I could see him going in the future and a lesson we can learn from his story. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos, and let's go ahead and get right into it. As I'm sure most of you already know, Lauri began his career as a Chicago Bull, being selected with the 7th overall pick in the 2017 draft. This pick was not Chicago's own, it was Minnesota's, which came over in the Jimmy Butler trade, one that signaled the start of a rebuild, meaning that Lauri was immediately looked at as somebody to lead them into their next era, alongside Zach LaVine, who also came over from the Timberwolves. And for LaVine, he would end up becoming a multi-time all-star. He's one of the players still on the Bulls today, while for Lauri, things wouldn't exactly work out. He started off with an all-rookie selection in his debut campaign, while jumping up to 18 points per game in his sophomore season. However, after that, things just continued to regress. His stats dropped a lot. It seemed like his role was continuously getting changed as coaches came in and out of the organization. He was relegated a lot of times to being just a spot-up shooter, and all of a sudden, it quickly became clear that Lauri wasn't in their long-term plans, especially when he got benched after the Nikola Vucevic trade a few seasons ago. Eventually, it became clear that a divorce was needed for both sides, and so a trade was orchestrated which sent Lauri over to the Cleveland Cavaliers to join a super big ball lineup with him playing the three most of the time. And he was really good in that role. He spaced the floor, he played some good moments at the 3 or a 4 if they needed him to do so, and it looked like he may have found a home in Cleveland as a really solid role player. However, this relationship wouldn't last long, as in the following offseason, Lauri was dealt over to the Utah Jazz in the Donovan Mitchell trade, a deal that completely shocked everybody, and I'm sure shocked Lauri, who probably thought that Cleveland was finally the place where he was going to find a home. And funnily enough, when we look back at that trade, Lauri wasn't even looked at as one of the premier pieces in that deal. Initially, most people looked at Colin Sexton because although he had just missed the full year, we had seen some incredible scoring potential from him. So he looked like maybe a guy that could thrive in a new environment in Utah where he had kind of the lead in the backcourt. Then people talked about the amount of first-round picks that they got back, which was copious, which you'd probably expect when you give up a guy in Donovan Mitchell who's a multi-time all-star. Then there was also Ochai Agbaji, who is a lottery pick and looked like he could be a great piece for the future. Then probably Lauri Markkanen. He was probably the least talked about piece of this entire deal, at least when I remember looking back on it. Now, of course, when this deal went down, most people talked about what it meant for Cleveland because obviously they got the superstar player in Donovan Mitchell out of the whole exchange. But it was also very interesting to think about what this could mean for Utah in this new era, beyond Donovan Mitchell, beyond Rudy Gobert, who would emerge for them as a new star, as a franchise cornerstone. And I remember talking to someone following this trade in Twitter Spaces, and I cannot remember their name. If it's you watching this video, please comment down below to let me know. But they told me that their bold prediction for the upcoming season was that Lauri Markkanen would be an all-star for Utah. And I'll be honest, I didn't think he would be an all-star, but it kind of clicked in that moment for me that, yeah, maybe he could have a really good season and he could start to kind of build off of some of that potential we saw from him earlier in his career, because now it was a whole new environment. There was nothing holding him back from just going ahead and being the player that many people thought he could be. And now, while I didn't think he would be an all-star, he was an all-star starter and he's a franchise cornerstone for the Utah Jazz. Statistically this season, Markkanen is averaging 24.9 points per game, 8.6 rebounds, 1.8 assists on 51% shooting from the field, 41% from deep, and 87.7% from the free throw line. He's 2.3% from being a 25 point per game, 50, 40, 90 scorer. It's incredible, and obviously this is a massive jump from him, going from around 13 points per game last season, even 18 points per game in his sophomore year. He has now defied all expectations. Like I said, he'll probably win most improved player, but I think we need to look even deeper to the numbers to really understand just how incredible this year that he's having is. For example, Lauri this season is averaging 24.9 points per game. He's one of 21 players averaging this much or more, and amongst all of those players, Kevin Durant has the best true shooting percentage out of anyone with a 67.3, which is absolutely absurd for a guy that shoots as much as he does, and he's followed closely by Steph Curry at a 66.5. I don't think any of you are surprised. These are two of the best scorers of all time who are having some of the most efficient seasons they've ever had before injury. But then in third is Lauri Markkanen at 65.7 true shooting percentage. He's just 1.8% behind Kevin Durant, who's having maybe the most efficient season he's ever had. And he's ahead of names like Zion Williamson, Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Donovan Mitchell, Luka Doncic, and Kyrie Irving, all names that we typically think of when we think about highly efficient scores, which they all are, but Lauri's somehow been even more efficient this season. To put it into an even wider perspective, if we expand this search to an all-time lens, Lauri ranks in the top 10 of players in terms of true shooting percentage that were scoring 24.9 or more points per game in their seasons. He's up there with Steph, KD, Charles Barkley, Adrian Dantley, and Nikola Jokic. This is an all-time efficient season at this volume that we're seeing from Lauri Markkanen, and I don't think enough people are talking about just how special he's been. Now, you may be asking yourself, how is he doing this? How did he take such a massive leap? And I think the first thing we need to look back to find the answer to that is Eurobasket. If you don't know what Eurobasket is, it's a European basketball tournament amongst national teams that happens every 4 years in the summer. And this past summer was one of those years, and Lauri led the Finnish team to a quarterfinals appearance in which he averaged 27.9 points per game on 50, 40, 90 splits. He was amazing, and in this run, he was clearly the best player. He took the most shots, he took over, and he did basically everything for the team offensively. And this is something that new Jazz head coach Will Hardy noticed immediately. He watched these games and said, wow, Lauri can do so much more than he's been given the opportunity to do so far in his career. He saw how he was used in the offense, how he orchestrated things, and really how he operated when given the freedom to do so. So when the season came around, Will Hardy made a decision to set things up for Lauri to be the best version of himself. He basically said, we're going to take what you did in Eurobasket and try and bring it over to the NBA. We're going to give you all the opportunities. We're going to have you as a ball handler, as a cutter, as a shooter, an initiator out of the post, basically whatever role we can put you in offensively, we're going to make it happen and give you the freedom to do what you need to do. As you can tell from the production, this is exactly what Lauri needed. He needed a coach who would instill the confidence in him, give him the keys and say, hey, go ahead and do what you do. Show us that you can do this on an NBA stage as well. And that's exactly what Lauri has done. He has unlocked his true potential. And his potential is being an unstoppable scorer with high efficiency from almost anywhere on the court. He can kill you from three. He can attack downhill and get to the basket, finish with a jam or a layup through contact. He can attack you in the mid-range, out of the post, play make for others, pass the ball, and he works so well as an initiator, as a ball handler, so many different roles that he was really never given the opportunity to explore in his other stops. According to B-Ball Index, Lauri's ranking towards the top of basically every offensive metric. He is a machine. The only thing that he's not great at is shot quality, which means that he's taking highly contested looks. He's taking ones that most other scorers can't knock down, but he's doing it with unreal efficiency because teams have kind of figured out that Lauri's amazing at this point, so they're keying in on him defensively. He doesn't exactly have a co-star yet, so it makes defenses easier to kind of just look at him in particular, but it hasn't mattered. He has still continued to score at such a high level, and he's going to become even more dangerous when the Jazz put more supporting cast around him, as well as another co-star to take off of some of that defensive pressure. This brings the question up of how far can Lauri go from here? Right now, he's 25 years old and in his 6th season in the league, meaning that he's a bit older than some of the other young rising stars that we take a look at. However, this doesn't mean that he doesn't have a lot of room to grow. As I mentioned, Lauri's doing all of this without another high-level scorer averaging like 20 points per game alongside him. So if you give him that type of co-star, take off of some of that defensive pressure, give him somebody to play off of more consistently, imagine what Lauri can do. This could become a real possibility if the Jazz end up with one of the top lottery picks this offseason and add like a Scoot Henderson, a Victor Wembanyama, or a number of other guys in a stacked draft class to be the secondary guy alongside Markkanen. Additionally, this is just the first season of him alongside Coach Will Hardy. As they continue to work together and build this offense, he's only going to become more comfortable and they can figure out new ways to utilize his strengths. So while I want to try and give you like a ceiling or a comparison for where Lauri can go, I don't exactly know. It's hard to tell when you have a player that just exploded onto the scene like this. We haven't seen enough consistency from him to really know what his career arc is going to be. But if I had to make a couple of predictions, I think he could consistently score around 25 points per game, be an all-star multiple seasons, and maybe even make an all-NBA squad. I don't quite know yet if he can be the best player on a championship team. I think I have to see a little bit more before I can make that determination. But at the very worst, I think Lauri could be a great number 2 option for the Utah Jazz going forward. And all around, regardless of where he ends up in terms of being the top guy or the second guy or the third guy or whatever, Lauri has established himself as a real staple of this Jazz team for the foreseeable future. He's a cornerstone, a guy that the franchise is going to lock up long term, and he's going to make an absolute bag when his next contract comes around. To wrap things up, I mentioned a couple times in this video that there's a lesson we can take from Lauri's story. I think that lesson is don't give up on players. Just because somebody isn't an all-star by year 3, year 4, year 5, even up to like year 6, year 7, don't give up on a guy. Someone can still become a great role player, or in the case of Lauri Markkanen, they can become an all-star when just given the right opportunity. A lot of young guys don't thrive right away in the scenario that they're put in, but they get to a new organization, they get a new head coach, new guys around them, and all of a sudden, boom, they're an all-star caliber player. They're a borderline all-star. They're just a good player in general that a lot of people now look at in a completely different light. In the case of Lauri, if he stayed in Chicago his whole career, who knows if he ever would have become the player that he is now. Same with Cleveland. But he gets over to Utah with a coach that really wants to prioritize utilizing his strengths. He's got a great cast of role players that can kind of play off of him. And boom, all of a sudden, Lauri's not just an all-star, but he is an all-star starter with potential all-NBA teams in the future. So don't give up on players just because they haven't met expectations in the first few seasons. That one breakout year might be right around the corner. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. Also, comment down below, let me know a young player that you think, similar to Lauri, could thrive if given a new location. For me, I'm hoping that this could be the case with like a James Wiseman, who's now going from the Warriors over to the Pistons. Maybe with this new opportunity, he could really thrive and kind of find some of the footing that we saw from him that made him the 2nd overall pick out of Memphis. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Rule 1, say it back.